I stood in my empty bakery at 3 a.m., staring at the eviction notice taped to my front door. The paper fluttered in the cold October wind coming through the broken seal, mocking me with every word. Final notice, you have 30 days to vacate the premises. My name is Margaret Sullivan. I'm 47 years old, and until 3 months ago, I thought I had built something that would last forever. I was wrong. The fluorescent lights hummed above me as I walked through what used to be my pride and joy, Sullivan's Artisan Bakery in downtown Portland, Oregon. 23 years of my life poured into these walls. The ovens that once filled the neighborhood with the scent of fresh sourdough now sat cold and silent. The display cases where I'd arranged hundreds of pastries every morning were empty, gathering dust like tombstones in a graveyard of dreams. But here's what you need to know. This isn't a story about failure. This is a story about what happened next. You see, I did everything they told you to do when you hit 40 and want to level up your business. I attended those flashy seminars where smooth-talking consultants promised to 10x your revenue in 90 days. I invested in marketing courses that guaranteed viral success. I even took out a second mortgage on my house to hire a business coach who wore expensive suits and drove a Tesla. Nathan Chambers. That was his name. You might want to remember it because he's exactly the kind of person you need to watch out for. Margaret, he said to me 6 months ago, shaking his head as he walked through my bakery with a clipboard, you're leaving so much money on the table. You're working hard, but you're not working smart. I believed him. God help me. I believed every word. He convinced me to stop baking the traditional recipes my grandmother taught me, the ones my customers loved, and switch to trending items that would maximize profit margins. He told me to fire my experienced staff and hire cheaper workers. He said I needed to cut costs on ingredients and optimize the supply chain. People can't tell the difference, he assured me with that perfect smile. It's all about perception and marketing. So I followed his advice. Every single recommendation. I spent $45,000 on his premium coaching package. I implemented his social media strategy, posting 3 times a day with carefully crafted hashtags. I redesigned my entire menu around what was supposedly hot in the bakery industry. And within 3 months, I lost everything. My loyal customers stopped coming. The new, cheaper products tasted like cardboard. My Instagram followers may have gone up, but my revenue plummeted by 67%. The experienced bakers I'd fired, some who'd been with me for 15 years, found work elsewhere. And Nathan? He was nowhere to be found when I called him in desperation, watching my business collapse. You didn't implement the strategy correctly, his assistant told me in a cold email. No refunds. It's in the contract. I sat in my empty bakery that night, surrounded by 23 years of memories, and I did something I hadn't done since my husband died 8 years ago. I cried. Not quiet, dignified tears, but the kind of sobbing that comes from deep in your chest, the kind that shakes your whole body. I was 47 years old, $127,000 in debt, and I had no idea how I was going to survive. But then something happened. Something I didn't expect. My daughter, Emily, came to see me. She's 24, fresh out of business school at the University of Oregon, and she sat across from me in that empty bakery with a laptop and a determined look in her eyes. "Mom," she said, "I've been researching that Nathan Chambers guy. Do you want to know what I found?" I nodded, too exhausted to speak. He's been sued 17 times in the last 5 years. 17, all for the same thing, promising business owners miraculous results and delivering nothing. He has no actual credentials, Mom. No MBA, no business background. He worked in timeshare sales before he became a business coach. His entire operation is designed to extract money from desperate business owners and then disappear. The rage that filled me in that moment was unlike anything I'd ever felt. Not just anger at Nathan, but at myself. How had I been so blind? How would I let someone with a nice suit and confident voice convince me to destroy everything I'd built? There's more, Emily continued, pulling up a spreadsheet on her laptop. I went through all your financial records. Mom, you're a phenomenal baker. Your original recipes, your grandmother's recipes, they had a 78% customer return rate. Do you know how rare that is? Most bakeries are happy with 30%. You didn't need to change anything about your product. You just needed better financial management and an actual marketing strategy, not social media theater. She showed me numbers I'd never paid attention to. My cost structure, my pricing strategy, my inventory management, all areas were small. Smart changes could have made huge differences. But Nathan had never looked at any of that. He just sold me a prepackaged system that had nothing to do with my actual business. That night, sitting in my failed bakery with my daughter, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let this destroy me. I was going to rebuild. But this time, I was going to do it right. I was going to learn how to actually run a business. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in months. The eviction notice was still on my door, the debt was still crushing, but something had shifted inside me. I wasn't a victim anymore. I was a 47-year-old woman who'd made mistakes, but I still had time to fix them. I called my landlord, Mr. Chen, who owned the building where I'd operated for 17 years. Mr. Chen, I need to be honest with you about what's happening, I said. No excuses, no begging, just truth. I made terrible business decisions. I trusted the wrong person and I lost my way. I can't pay this month's rent. I probably can't pay next month either. But I have a plan to turn this around and I'm asking for 90 days to prove it to you. There was silence on the other end of the line. Then, Margaret, you've been a good tenant for 17 years. Your bakery brought life to this neighborhood. Tell me your plan. That conversation taught me something crucial. People respect honesty. They respect taking responsibility. They don't respect excuses. My plan was simple but brutal. I was going to strip my business down to its core and rebuild it properly. No shortcuts, no magic formulas, just solid fundamentals. First, I needed to understand where I'd actually gone wrong. So, I did something that terrified me. I reached out to 3 of my former customers who'd stopped coming, and I asked them to tell me the truth. Mrs. Rodriguez had been coming to my bakery every Saturday morning for 12 years. When I called her, my hands were shaking. Mrs. Rodriguez, this is Margaret Sullivan. I know you stopped coming to my bakery, and I need to understand why. Would you be willing to tell me? Oh, Margaret, she said, and I could hear the disappointment in her voice. The bread changed. That beautiful sourdough you used to make, with the crispy crust and the tangy flavor, it disappeared. What you started selling tasted like it came from a factory. I tried it 3 times, hoping maybe you were just having an off week, but it never got better. So I started going to that new place on Hawthorne Street. Each conversation was like that. Painful, honest, necessary. My customers hadn't stopped coming because of my marketing or my social media presence. They'd stopped coming because I'd destroyed the quality that made them love my bakery in the first place, all in pursuit of optimization and profit margins. I'd betrayed the very thing that made my business special. That night, I pulled out my grandmother's recipe book. It was old, stained with flour and butter, the pages barely holding together. She'd brought it with her from Ireland in 1952, and every recipe was written in her careful handwriting. I started baking again. Not for customers, I didn't have any, just for myself, to remember why I'd fallen in love with this in the first place. At 4 a.m., I pulled a perfect sourdough loaf from the oven. The crust crackled as it cooled. The smell filled the entire bakery, that complex, yeasty, slightly sour aroma that you can't fake or rush. I tore off a piece, still warm, and tasted it. I cried again. But this time, they were different tears. I'd forgotten what real quality tasted like. I'd gotten so caught up in business strategy that I'd forgotten the most important thing: make something people actually want. The next day, I made a list. Not a fancy business plan, I'd had enough of those. Just a simple list of everything I needed to do. 1. Go back to the original recipes. 2. Find an experienced baker to help me. 3. Reduce the menu to just the items I could make excellently. 4. Be honest with every creditor about my situation. 5. Learn basic business fundamentals. I should have learned 23 years ago. 6. Never ever trust another guru promising easy success. Emily helped me enroll in a free small business course at Portland Community College. It was taught by Professor David Kwan, a 62-year-old man who'd owned and operated 3 successful businesses over his career. No flashy promises, no secret systems, just decades of hard-won knowledge. The most dangerous thing you can do in business, Professor Kwan told our class on the first night, is believe that success should be easy. Success in business is simple. Provide real value. Manage your money carefully. Treat people with respect. But simple doesn't mean easy. It means doing basic things excellently day after day, year after year. I sat in that community college classroom, surrounded by people half my age, taking notes like my life depended on it. Because it did. Professor Kwan taught us about contribution margins, about cash flow management, and about the difference between revenue and profit. Basic concepts that I'd somehow run a business for 23 years without truly understanding. How many of you have taken money out of your business without knowing whether you actually made a profit that month? He asked. My hand went up. So did most of the class. That's not a business, he said gently. That's a hobby with a cash register. A business requires discipline. He was right. I'd been running a hobby. I'd paid myself whatever I thought I needed without ever really tracking whether the business could afford it. I'd bought new equipment when I wanted it, not when the numbers justified it. I'd made emotional decisions and called them business decisions. No wonder Nathan Chambers had found me such an easy target. I'd been business illiterate and I hadn't even known it. But here's what changed everything. I stopped being ashamed of what I didn't know, and I started learning. I spent every evening for 6 weeks in that classroom. Every morning I practiced the fundamentals, baking the recipes I knew worked, calculating my actual costs, tracking every single expense. I called every single vendor I owed money to. This is Margaret Sullivan from Sullivan's Bakery. I owe you $3,200, and I can't pay it right now. But here's what I can do. I can pay you $200 this month, $300 next month, and we'll increase it from there. I'm not asking you to forgive the debt. I'm asking you to work with me while I fix this. 3 vendors said no and sent me to collections. 5 vendors said yes. That's a 62% success rate. Not perfect, but better than I expected. The one who surprised me most was Tom Hendricks, my flour supplier. I'd been buying from him for 19 years. Margaret, he said, I've been in this business for 40 years. I've seen 100 bakeries come and go. You know what kills most of them? Pride. They'd rather file bankruptcy than admit they need help. The fact that you're calling me, being honest, telling me you have a plan, that tells me you're going to make it. He gave me net 60 payment terms and personally delivered 100 pounds of his best flour to my door. Pay me when you can, he said. Make good bread. That's all I care about. 6 weeks after that night, sitting in my empty bakery, I reopened. But this time, everything was different. I didn't advertise. I didn't do a grand reopening. I just unlocked the door at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday morning with exactly 3 items for sale. My grandmother's sourdough, her Irish soda bread, and a simple butter croissant. That's it. 3 items. Made perfectly. By 7 a.m., I'd sold 12 loaves. By 9 a.m., I was sold out. Mrs. Rodriguez came back. She didn't say anything. She just bought 2 loaves of sourdough, smelled them, smiled, and said, "Welcome back, Margaret." I cried for the third time that week, but again, different tears. These were tears of hope. I did that for 8 weeks. Same 3 items, made excellently. No cutting corners, no optimizing, just quality. My revenue was a fraction of what it had been. But here's what I learned in Professor Kwan's class. Revenue doesn't matter if you're not profitable. With just 3 items, I knew exactly what my costs were. I knew exactly what I needed to charge. I knew exactly how much I needed to sell to cover my expenses and start paying down debt. For the first time in 23 years, I actually understood my business. In week 9, I added a 4th item, chocolate chip cookies made from my grandmother's recipe. Customers bought them out in 2 hours. In week 10, I added cinnamon rolls. Slowly, carefully, I rebuilt. Not chasing trends, not listening to gurus, just making excellent products, managing my money carefully, and being honest with everyone I worked with. Emily created a simple Instagram account for me. Not the aggressive post 3 times a day strategy Nathan had pushed. Just 1 photo a day of whatever we'd baked, with a simple caption. No hashtag spam, no growth hacks. Just, this is what we made today. People started showing up because of those posts. Not because of any marketing trickery, but because the photos showed real quality. You can see the difference between something made with care and something mass-produced. People aren't stupid. By week 16, I broke even. By week 20, I was profitable. By week 24, I'd hired back my first employee, Martha, who'd been with me for 12 years before I'd let Nathan convince me to fire her. She walked in on a Wednesday morning, and I started crying before I could even say hello. "I'm so sorry," I told her. "I'm so sorry for what I did. I made terrible decisions, and you paid the price. I can't pay you what I used to pay you, not yet, but I want you to know." "Margaret," she interrupted, "shut up and put me back to work. I've missed this place every single day." That was 8 months ago. Today, Sullivan's Artisan Bakery is profitable. I'm still $83,000 in debt, paying it down $2,000 a month. But I'm profitable. I have 4 employees, all people who understand that we make quality, not quantity. My menu has exactly 12 items, and I make all of them excellent. I'll never have the revenue I had at my peak when I was chasing growth at all costs, but I don't want that anymore. I want something sustainable, something real. But here's where the story takes a turn you might not expect. 3 weeks ago, I got a call from a woman named Patricia Denning. She was 52, owned a flower shop in Seattle, and she was crying on the phone. "Margaret," she said, "I found your bakery on Instagram, and I read the story you posted about what happened with that business coach. The same thing just happened to me. I hired a consultant who promised to transform my business, and now I'm $95,000 in debt and facing foreclosure. I don't know what to do." I talked to her for 2 hours. I shared everything I'd learned, not as an expert, but as someone who'd been exactly where she was. "The first thing you need to do," I told her, "is stop being ashamed. Shame keeps you frozen. This isn't a moral failing. You trusted someone who lied to you. Now you know better. Now you do better." We went through her finances together. I showed her how to calculate her real costs, how to talk to her creditors, how to strip her business down to its profitable core. She called me back 2 weeks later. I talked to my landlord. I was honest with him. He gave me 90 days. I enrolled in that community college course you told me about. "Margaret, I haven't felt hope for 6 months. Thank you." That conversation changed something in me. I realized that my nightmare with Nathan Chambers, all that pain and humiliation, had given me something valuable, knowledge that other people needed. I started a free monthly workshop at my bakery for small business owners over 40. Not a coaching program. I'll never charge anyone for business advice after what was done to me. Just a free gathering where we share real experiences, real numbers, real challenges. The first month, 5 people showed up. Last month, we had 34 people crammed into my little bakery, sharing stories of consultants who'd scammed them, growth hacks that had bankrupted them, opportunities that had destroyed them. One man, Robert Chen, owned a small printing business in Portland. He'd spent $67,000 on a sales training system that promised to double his revenue in 60 days. Instead, he'd lost his 3 best clients because the aggressive sales tactics the system taught him had alienated everyone. "I thought there was something wrong with me," he said. "I thought I wasn't implementing it right. I didn't realize the system itself was predatory." A woman named Sarah Torres had owned a yoga studio for 8 years. A marketing agency convinced her to spend $15,000 on Facebook ads. The ads generated thousands of clicks, but exactly 0 new members because the agency had targeted the wrong audience entirely. When she complained, they blamed her for not having a good enough sales funnel. These weren't stupid people. These were intelligent, hard-working business owners who'd been targeted by predators dressed up as experts. And here's what made me angry. Most of these predators specifically target people over 40. Why? Because we're desperate to prove we're not obsolete. Because we're afraid we've missed our chance. Because we're financially vulnerable, often supporting kids, caring for aging parents, watching our retirement accounts that aren't where they should be. The predators know this. They craft their messages specifically to exploit these fears. Don't let your age hold you back. It's not too late to build the business of your dreams. You've worked hard your whole life. Don't you deserve success? These messages sound empowering. They're actually manipulation. They're designed to make you feel like you're taking control of your life when you're actually handing control to someone who sees you as a revenue source. After 6 months of running these workshops, I got a call from someone I never expected, Nathan Chambers. "Margaret," his smooth voice said, "I heard you've been bad-mouthing me around Portland. That's defamation. I could sue you." For the first time in our entire relationship, I wasn't intimidated. "Nathan," I said calmly, "I haven't mentioned your name publicly even once. I've talked about my experiences with business coaching scams, but I've never named you. However, if you'd like to sue me, please do. I have all our contracts, all your emails, all the documentation of your promises, and what you actually delivered. I also have contact information for 17 other people you've scammed. I'd love to have all of that reviewed in open court." Silence on the other end. "But here's what I'm willing to offer," I continued. "Leave me alone. Leave my business alone, and I'll continue not naming you publicly. Keep harassing me, and I'll make sure everyone in Portland knows exactly who you are and what you do, your choice." He never called again. That phone call taught me something crucial. Predators rely on your shame and silence. When you refuse to be ashamed, when you refuse to be silent, they lose their power. I started documenting everything I'd learned, not in some polished professional format, just honest notes about what had worked, what hadn't, and what I wished I'd known earlier. Emily convinced me to start a simple blog. Nothing fancy, just my real experiences, written in plain language, free for anyone to read. "Mom," she said, "there are thousands of people in exactly the situation you were in. They need to know they're not alone. They need to know there's a way forward." The first blog post I wrote was titled, "How I Lost Everything at 47 and Why That Made Me Better at Business." I expected maybe a few people to read it. It got shared 3,000 times in the first week. The messages started pouring in, hundreds of them, from small business owners across the country, all telling versions of the same story. Hired a consultant, followed the advice, lost everything. I felt like I was a failure. I thought I was the only one stupid enough to fall for this, wrote a 54-year-old man from Ohio who'd lost his HVAC business to a similar scam. You're not stupid, you're trusting. And predators weaponize trust. I started receiving messages from people asking for advice, specific questions about their specific businesses. I answered every single one, usually late at night after the bakery closed. I didn't charge anything. I didn't try to sell anything to them. I just shared what I knew, what I'd learned, what had worked for me. A woman named Joyce Atkinson reached out from Tulsa. She was 49, owned a small restaurant, and was considering hiring a restaurant consultant who'd promised to revolutionize her business model for only $35,000. Should I do it? She asked. I talked to her for an hour on the phone, asking questions. Does this consultant have experience running an actual restaurant or just consulting? Are they promising specific, measurable results or vague transformations? Do they have verifiable references you can check or just testimonials on their website? What happens if their advice doesn't work? Do they refund your money, or is there a clause saying all sales are final? As we went through these questions, Joyce's voice got quieter. "Oh no," she finally said. "This is exactly like what happened to you, isn't it? He has no real restaurant experience. His promises are vague. He won't give me references. And the contract says no refunds." She didn't hire him. She took that $35,000 and used it to renovate her kitchen instead, increasing her capacity during peak hours. Her revenue went up 23% over the next 6 months because she could serve more customers during dinner rush. "You saved my business," she told me later. "You saved my life." I didn't save anything. I just asked questions she'd been too afraid to ask herself. 1 year after reopening my bakery, I hit a milestone I never thought I'd reach. I was debt-free. I stood in my bakery at 11 p.m. on Tuesday, holding the final payment check to Tom Hendricks, my flour supplier. He'd been the most patient of all my creditors, never pressuring me, always believing I'd do good on my debts. I hand-delivered it to him the next morning. "You didn't have to drive all the way out here," he said. "You could have mailed it." "Tom," I said, "you trusted me when you had no reason to. You gave me flour on credit when every logical business decision said you shouldn't. This deserved to be delivered in person." He invited me in for coffee. His flour mill was a fourth-generation family business, and we sat in his office surrounded by black and white photos of his great-grandfather, grandfather, and father, all standing in front of the same mill. "You want to know why I trusted you?" he asked. "Because you called me. You were honest. You had a plan. Margaret, I've been in business for 40 years. I've extended credit to hundreds of people, the ones who lie, who hide, who make excuses. They never pay you back. The ones who are honest, who take responsibility, who show you their plan almost always do." "Even if their plan doesn't work?" I asked. "If the plan doesn't work, but they're honest about why and they come back with a new plan, yes. Because they're not trying to escape responsibility. They're trying to fulfill it." That conversation crystallized something I'd been learning over the past year. Character matters more than credentials. Nathan Chambers had impressive credentials, or at least credentials that looked impressive if you didn't dig deeper. Expensive website, professional headshots, polished marketing materials. But he had no character. Tom Hendricks had flour dust on his shirt and calluses on his hands, but he had character. Professor Kwan taught at a community college, not Harvard Business School, but he had character. Martha, my baker, didn't have any business degree, but she had character. I'd spent 23 years of my business life focusing on the wrong things: trends, growth, optimization. I should have been focusing on character, mine, and the people I chose to work with. The second year of running my rebuilt bakery was different from the first. I wasn't in survival mode anymore. I was in building mode, but building carefully, thoughtfully, sustainably. I hired 2 more employees, both experienced bakers who understood that quality wasn't negotiable. I added 4 more items to my menu, but only after testing them extensively and making sure I could make them excellent. My revenue was now about 60% of what it had been at my peak, but my profit margin was 3 times higher. I was working fewer hours. I slept better. I wasn't constantly stressed about cash flow. I'd traded the illusion of success for actual success. And actual success was quieter, steadier, less impressive looking from the outside, but it was real. Emily graduated from business school and, to my shock, asked if she could work with me. "Mom," she said, "I've learned more about real business from watching you rebuild than I learned in 4 years of school. I want to help you grow this, but the right way. Together, we have developed a simple 5-year plan. Not aggressive, not chasing viral growth, just steady, sustainable expansion. Year 1, perfect our core products and operations. Year 2, open a small wholesale operation, supplying 3 local coffee shops with our bread. Year 3, expand wholesale to 10 local partners. Year 4, open a second location, but only if the numbers clearly support it. Year 5, decide if we want to keep growing or stay at this size. What if we get to year 4 and we decide we don't want to open a second location?" I asked Emily. "Then we don't," she said. "Growth for growth's sake is what almost destroyed you the first time. This time, we only grow if it makes us better, not just bigger." That distinction, better versus bigger, changed everything about how I thought about business. 18 months after reopening, I got a call that stopped me from cold. "Is this Margaret Sullivan? This is Linda Cartwright from the Portland Consumer Protection Alliance. We've been investigating business coaching scams in the Pacific Northwest, and your name came up multiple times as someone who was victimized by Nathan Chambers. Would you be willing to talk to us?" I spent 3 hours on the phone with Linda, walking through everything: the contracts, the promises, the results, the financial damage. She was taking a case against Nathan and several other business coaches who operated similarly. "Margaret," she said, "we have complaints from 47 different people about Nathan Chambers. The total amount he's taken from small business owners is over $2.1 million. But none of them wanted to go public because they were ashamed. You're the first person willing to tell your story publicly." "Why does that matter?" I asked. "Because these predators rely on shame. They rely on victims being too embarrassed to come forward. If you're willing to testify, if you're willing to tell your story, it changes everything. Other victims will feel safe coming forward. We can build a real case." I thought about Patricia in Seattle, about Robert with his printing business, about Sarah with her yoga studio, about Joyce in Tulsa, who I'd saved from making the same mistake. "I'll do it," I said. "What do you need?" Over the next 6 months, I worked with Linda and her team, documenting everything, giving statements, connecting them with other victims I knew. It was exhausting and triggering, having to relive all those mistakes, all that humiliation. But it was also empowering. For the first time, I wasn't a victim. I was a witness. I was someone fighting back. The case went public in March. Local news covered it. Nathan Chambers' face was suddenly on TV, his business practices exposed, his victims finally able to tell their stories. He tried to fight it initially, claiming everything was legal, that he'd delivered exactly what his contracts promised. But when 47 victims came forward with identical stories, his defense crumbled. The settlement came through in July. Nathan Chambers was ordered to pay restitution to his victims, and his business was shut down. He couldn't operate as a business consultant in Oregon for 10 years. I received a check for $38,000. Not everything I'd lost, but something. But more importantly, I received messages from dozens of other victims thanking me for being brave enough to come forward. "I thought I was alone," wrote one man. "I thought I was the only one stupid enough to fall for this. You made me realize it wasn't stupidity, it was trust betrayed. Thank you." That's when everything clicked for me. The real lesson wasn't just about rebuilding my business, it was about rebuilding my understanding of what business should be. Business isn't about growth hacks or secret systems or overnight success. Business is about providing real value to real people, managing your money responsibly, being honest when things go wrong, learning continuously, especially from mistakes, choosing character over credentials, building something sustainable, not something flashy. These aren't sexy principles. There's no Instagram post that makes them look exciting. No TikTok video can capture their importance in 15 seconds, but they're the foundation of everything that lasts. Today, Sullivan's Artisan Bakery is in its third year of rebuilt operations. We have 7 employees. We supply 14 local coffee shops and restaurants with our bread. We're profitable. We're sustainable. We're growing slowly and carefully. I'm 49 now. I'll be 50 in 6 months. And I've learned something crucial. The years after 40 aren't about proving you're still relevant. They're about using your experience to build something that actually matters. The business I have now is smaller than the one I had at 45, but it's better. It's more profitable. It's more stable. It's built on a foundation that can actually support growth, not on tricks and shortcuts and borrowed time. I still run those free monthly workshops for small business owners over 40. They've grown to about 50 regular attendees. We share stories, we share strategies, we share warnings about predators, but most importantly, we share hope. Because here's what I want you to understand. If you're over 40 and you've made business mistakes, you're not finished. You're positioned. You have experience now that you didn't have at 25. You have perspective. You have resilience that comes from having survived challenges. You have less ego and more wisdom. Yes, you also have more responsibilities, maybe kids in college, aging parents, retirement looming closer. Those aren't weaknesses. They're motivated to make smart decisions, not desperate ones. Predators want you to believe that time is running out, that you need to act fast, that you can't afford to learn slowly. That's a lie. You can't afford to learn slowly. Quick success almost always collapses. Slow success, built on fundamentals, lasts. I see so many business owners my age panicking about Instagram followers, about going viral, about relevance. They're buying courses on cryptocurrency and NFTs and whatever the next trend is. They're hiring consultants who promise to unlock their potential or disrupt their industry. And I want to grab them and say, stop, breathe, build something real. You know what's actually revolutionary after 40? Boring fundamentals executed excellently, treating customers with respect, paying your bills on time, making quality products, managing cash flow carefully, being honest when you make mistakes. That's not sexy, but it works. 3 months ago, a young man came into my bakery. He was maybe 26, wearing an expensive suit, carrying a laptop covered in startup stickers. He ordered a coffee and then approached me. "You're Margaret Sullivan, right? I read your blog. Listen, I'm a business consultant and I think I could really help you scale this operation. You're leaving so much money on the table. With the right systems, you could 10x your revenue in..." I held up my hand. "Stop. Let me ask you something. Have you ever run a bakery?" "No, but have you ever run any business for more than 2 years?" "I'm more on the consulting side, but I've helped dozens of..." "How old are you?" 26, but that's not really..." "I'm 49, I said. "I've been in business for 25 years. I've made more mistakes than you've made business decisions. And here's what I've learned. Anyone who tells you they can 10x your revenue without understanding your business is lying. So here's my advice to you. Go actually run a business. Succeed at it for 5 years. Make real mistakes and learn from them. Then maybe you'll have something valuable to teach. But until then, stop preying on people who are desperate enough to believe you." His face went red. He left without finishing his coffee. Martha, who'd been listening from behind the counter, started clapping. "I've waited 20 years to see you talk to someone like that," she said. "Welcome back, Margaret." She was right. I was back. Not the version of myself from before the disaster, that Margaret was naive, trusting, business illiterate. I was a new version, scared, educated, careful, but also hopeful. Last month, I gave a talk at Portland Community College in Professor Kwan's business class. He'd invited me to share my story with his students. I stood in front of 30 students, most of them under 30, a few my age or older, and I told them everything. Success, the scam, the collapse, the rebuilding. I didn't sugarcoat anything. "I want to show you something," I said, pulling up a photo on the projector. It was the eviction notice from 2 years ago taped to my bakery door. This is what desperation looks like. This is what happens when you chase shortcuts instead of building fundamentals. Then I showed them another photo, my bakery today, customers lined up out the door on a Saturday morning. This is what happens when you do it right, not fast, not easy, right. A young woman in the front row raised her hand. But isn't there room for both? Like, can't you use growth strategies and have good fundamentals? Absolutely, I said. But here's the order that matters: fundamentals first, always. You can't scale a broken business model. You can't market your way out of a quality problem. You can't Instagram your way to profitability if your costs are higher than your revenue. The fundamentals aren't the boring part you rush through to get to the exciting growth stuff. The fundamentals are business. An older man in the back, probably in his mid-50s, spoke up. "I've been running a plumbing business for 30 years. Last year, I hired one of those consultants you talked about. It cost me $40,000, nearly destroyed my business. I'm sitting here trying to figure out how to rebuild. How did you get past the shame of it?" I looked at him directly. I stopped seeing it as shame and started seeing it as education. Yes, I made mistakes. Yes, I trusted someone I shouldn't have. But predators are good at what they do. They're professionals at manipulation. Being fooled by a professional manipulator doesn't make you stupid. It makes you human. What would make you stupid is making the same mistake twice. Are you going to make this mistake again? Hell no, he said. Then you're not stupid. You're educated. Now use that education to build something better. After the talk, 8 people came up to me with variations of the same story. They'd been scammed, lost money, felt like failures. I gave each of them my phone number. "Call me if you need help," I said. "Not consulting. I'll never charge people for business advice, just support, someone to talk to who's been there." 4 of them called. We met for coffee. We went through their numbers together. We made plans. Simple, boring, fundamental plans that actually worked. One of them, a woman named Carol Jensen, who'd lost her event planning business to a similar scam, texted me 6 months later. "I'm profitable again. I'm careful again. I'm me again. Thank you." That's the real victory. Not my bakery's success, that's just commerce. The real victory is helping other people avoid or recover from what happened to me. Yesterday was my 50th birthday. Emily threw me a surprise party at the bakery, and I cried when I walked in to see everyone there. My employees, my regular customers, Tom Hendricks from the mill, Professor Kwan, even Linda Cartwright from the Consumer Protection Alliance. Mrs. Rodriguez, my customer who'd come back after I reopened, handed me a card. Inside, she'd written, "Thank you for teaching me that quality matters more than convenience. Your grandmother would be proud." That hit me harder than anything else, because she was right. My grandmother would be proud, not of success or the numbers or the expansion. She'd be proud that I'd return to her values, make good things, treat people honestly, work hard, be patient. Those aren't innovative principles. They're old-fashioned, but they work. Martha made a speech that made everyone laugh and cry. 23 years ago, Margaret hired a 22-year-old kid who barely knew how to crack an egg properly. She taught me everything about baking. Then, 2 years ago, she taught me something even more important. She taught me what real character looks like. When she called me to apologize for firing me, when she asked me to come back even though she could barely pay me, that's when I knew I'd work for this woman for the rest of my career. Tom Hendricks stood up, flour dust still on his shirt even though this was a party. "I've been in business for 40 years, and I've seen every type of person there is. The ones who succeed aren't the smartest or the most educated. They're the most honest. Margaret, you're one of the most honest people I've ever met. That's why you're still here." Professor Kwan was last. "I've taught business for 18 years. I've had thousands of students. Very few of them actually understand what business is about. Most think it's about innovation or disruption or some grand vision. Margaret understands what it's really about. Serving people well, day after day, year after year with integrity. That's not exciting, but it's true. I stood up, trying not to cry again, and looked at all those people who'd supported me through the worst period of my life. "I'm going to tell you something that might sound strange," I said. "I'm grateful for what happened. I'm grateful that Nathan Chambers scammed me. I'm grateful that I lost everything." People looked confused. Here's why. I was running a successful business, but I didn't understand it. I was making money, but I didn't know why. I had employees, but I wasn't a good leader. I had customers, but I'd stopped caring about quality. I was on a path that looked successful but was actually hollow. That scam forced me to rebuild from zero, and in rebuilding, I learned what actually matters. I paused, looking around the room. I'm 50 years old today. 50. Our culture treats that like it's almost over, like the good years are behind you. But I'm more capable, more confident, and more competent than I've ever been. I know what I'm doing now. I know what to ignore. I know who to trust. I know how to build something that lasts. I raised my glass. So, here's to being 50. Here's to hard-won wisdom. Here's to slow growth and boring fundamentals. Here's to everyone in this room who's proven that character matters more than credentials. Thank you for believing in me when I'd stopped believing in myself. This morning, I woke up at 4 a.m., like I do every morning. I drove to the bakery in the dark, like I do every morning. I preheated the ovens, mixed the first batch of dough, and pulled out my grandmother's recipe book. But something was different today. I wasn't afraid anymore. For years, even before Nathan Chambers, even in my successful period, I'd been operating from fear. Fear that I wasn't good enough. Fear that I'd be left behind. Fear that at 40, 45, 50, I was becoming irrelevant. That fear made me vulnerable to predators. It made me chase trends instead of trusting my instincts. It made me doubt myself when I should have trusted myself. I don't have that fear anymore. I'm 50. I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm not good at. I know how to learn. I know how to ask for help. I know how to say no to bullshit. I know how to build something real. And I know I'm not alone. Since I started sharing my story publicly, I've heard from over 400 small business owners who've been through similar experiences. 400 people who thought they were failures, who thought they were alone, who were too ashamed to speak up. We're not alone. We're an army of survivors who've learned the hard way what actually works. Next month, I'm organizing the first Business Resilience Summit for entrepreneurs over 40. Not a conference with expensive tickets and keynote speakers selling you their courses. Just a free gathering where we share real experiences, real numbers, real strategies that work. We already have 200 people registered. We're meeting at a community center in Portland. No fancy venue. No corporate sponsors, just people who've survived business challenges and want to help others do the same. Emily's helping me organize it. "Mom," she said last week, "you've accidentally created a movement. People are starving for honesty. They're exhausted by predators. You're giving them something real." Maybe she's right, or maybe I'm just one person sharing my story. But if my story helps even one person avoid what happened to me or recover from what happened to me, then everything I went through was worth it. So let me tell you what I've learned, distilled into the lessons that actually matter. Lesson 1. After 40, your experience is your advantage, not your liability. Don't let anyone convince you that you need to reinvent yourself or chase what's trendy. You have decades of pattern recognition, relationship building, and hard-won wisdom. Use it. Lesson 2. Simple fundamentals executed excellently beat complex strategies executed poorly every single time. Know your real costs. Price appropriately. Manage cash flow carefully. Treat people honestly. It's boring. It works. Lesson 3. Predators target desperation. If someone is promising you easy success, quick growth, or revolutionary results, they're either lying or selling you something that works for them, not you. Real business growth is slow, methodious, and built on boring fundamentals. Lesson 4. Character matters more than credentials. Work with people who are honest, even when it's hard. Avoid people with impressive resumes but no integrity. You can teach skills. You can't teach character. Lesson 5. Debt is not inherently bad, but debt incurred for the wrong reasons will destroy you. Never go into debt for business coaching, revolutionary marketing systems, or anything that promises results without showing you exactly how those results will be achieved with your specific business model. Lesson 6. Your first responsibility is to your existing customers, not to hypothetical future growth. The customers who already trust you are more valuable than 1,000 potential customers you haven't met yet. Don't betray quality in pursuit of quantity. Lesson 7. Failure is only permanent if you quit. I lost everything at 47. I rebuilt it at 49. You can do the same at any age. The question isn't whether you failed. The question is whether you're willing to learn from failure and try again, smarter this time. Lesson 8. Community is everything. Find other business owners who share your values. Share your struggles honestly. Ask for help. Offer help. The myth of the self-made entrepreneur is exactly that myth. Every successful person I know succeeded because they built relationships with good people. Lesson 9. Growth for growth's sake is a trap. Bigger is not always better. More revenue doesn't matter if you're not profitable. Viral success doesn't matter if it's not sustainable. Figure out what success actually means to you, then build toward that specific vision, not someone else's definition. Lesson 10. The best time to start over is right now, not when you're more prepared, not when you have more money, not when you feel more confident. Now, with what you have, where you are. Take the first small step, then the next, then the next. I'm standing in my bakery right now as I finish telling you this story. It's 9 p.m. The last customer left an hour ago. The ovens are cooling. The floors are clean. Tomorrow's dough is proofing in the refrigerator. Emily's at the counter working on our books. Martha's in the back, prepping ingredients for tomorrow. This is my life now. Not glamorous, not Instagram-worthy, just real. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. If you're reading this, or if you're listening to this, and you're over 40 and you're struggling with your business, I want you to know something. You're not too old. You're not obsolete. You're not a failure. You're at the exact age where you have enough experience to build something that actually works. But you're still young enough to enjoy decades of success. Don't let predators convince you that you need their secret systems. You don't. You need fundamentals. You need honesty. You need patience. You need to trust yourself. Don't let fear drive you into bad decisions. Fear makes you vulnerable to anyone promising easy solutions. There are no easy solutions. There's just work, good, honest, fundamental work. And don't be ashamed if you've made mistakes. I lost $127,000 to a scammer. I fired loyal employees. I destroyed quality in pursuit of growth. I made every mistake in the book. But I learned. I rebuilt. I'm here. You can be too. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been scammed by a business consultant or coach? Have you ever made business decisions out of fear? Have you ever felt like you were too old to rebuild? Tell me your story in the comments, not because I want to judge you, but because I want you to know you're not alone. Share your experience. Ask your questions. Let's build a community of business owners who support each other with honesty, not predatory promises. And if you found value in this story, if it gave you hope or helped you see your situation differently, please subscribe to this channel. I share stories like this every week, real experiences from real people who've faced real challenges and found real solutions. Not magic formulas, not secret systems, just truth. Because after 40, truth is the only thing that works. Thank you for listening to my story. Now I'm go to build something real. Margaret Sullivan, owner, Sullivan's Artisan Bakery, Portland, Oregon survivor, rebuilt and stronger than ever.